Tonight we're going to be talking about chapter 8 of my book, which is the INFJ user guide. We'll just give everybody a couple of minutes to find us. I know that I'm a couple of minutes early too. I wanted to tell you, if you haven't heard yet, I'm doing some live free workshops, not this coming week, but the next week. They're all about understanding your personality, healing from your past, and stepping into your best self yet. So if you haven't signed up for them, make sure that you do. You can find them at infjwoman.com/hereforthis. And the link is in my profile. The link is in my bio, I guess. The link is in my stories. It's pretty much everywhere. I'm so glad that you guys like my hair. I was a little bit unsure of it because it was supposed to be more blonde and less streaky, but it is what it is. It'll be more blonde next time. That's for sure. It'll be blonde, more blonde next time. All right, let's start talking about chapter 8, shall we? It starts on page 60, so tonight we're talking about INFJ weaknesses. This topic comes up a lot for us, especially there's a lot of posts on my Instagram about it because it seems like we, as INFJs, we focus a lot on our weaknesses. We're kind of like zeroed in on them. I think a lot of it is because we see problems easily and we can usually spot solutions pretty well too. So when there's a problem, it's like, okay, let me fix this. And especially when it's a problem in ourselves, we tend to hyper focus on it and just want to do everything that we can to fix it. So it's kind of a trap that we fall into a lot of times. Some of the things that are perceived weaknesses aren't really things that we can fix. And then there are some things that it's definitely important to be aware of. So let's just go through some of them in this chapter. The first one is that we're extremely private. It's not only that we don't like people in our business, but it's difficult for people to get to know us, is what I've been told. I feel like for me, I'm like, have a lot of walls up around new people, but then once I get to know them, then I tend to overshare. And then that could be just as bad, you know, because people are used to you not saying anything, and then when you say too much, then they get freaked out too. But I think us being private, it comes from years and years of oversharing and getting hurt over and over again, and people not understanding us and people not taking the time to understand us. And so then it's like, why put yourself out there? Because you just feel like you're going to get the same thing over and over again. So it's kind of like a protective measure so that we don't get hurt. Am I saying this live? Yes, I'm definitely saying it live. That's how Instagram Live works. Okay, the next one is difficulty making friends. I have had difficulty making friends my whole life. It's been a problem ever since I can remember. Part of it was when I was really young, I was like super shy. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't really want friends. Didn't feel like I needed friends. I had an older sister. She's 2 years older than me, and so we sort of just hung out together, and I really felt like that was all that I needed. I didn't like talking to people because, and it's still kind of like, I still don't like it because, you know, you get into all the small talk and it's like, I don't want to repeat the same thing over and over again. And especially at work, I've worked in several jobs where there were people who were like super excited about all of the small talky things, you know, like what's the weather doing And what are you doing next weekend? And do you watch football or basketball or baseball? And the job that I work at now, everybody is like seriously into sports. They all watch baseball. And I think the company actually has tickets to Fenway Park here in Boston. And so it's like this big thing with everybody. And it's been 2 years ago, we had this company outing, and we were going to Fenway Park as just to like take a tour of the ballpark when it was empty. And so we were going, like making plans to go, and I was like, oh, do you think Tom Brady's gonna be there? And they're like, what? Like, Tom Brady doesn't play baseball, like what? And then like, you know, like getting super hyped up and seriously offended. And I'm like, really? I'm so disappointed. I really wanted to see him. I can't believe that he's not going to be there. I know Tom Brady doesn't play baseball, but it was funny watching them like respond, thinking that I'm like so stupid that I don't know that. I do know that. I don't know who actually does play baseball, but, and to be fair, it was actually really cool to go to Fenway Park. I was not excited prior to going, and I'm like, you know, this is like mandatory fun that I don't want to do. But then when we actually went, and then they told us the history of the ballpark, and we got a tour of all the different places that are there, it was pretty cool. I don't know that I would want to go to a baseball game. I did go to a concert there like a month and a half ago, and that was super fun. But yeah, difficulty making friends, it's a big thing. I think a lot of it too just comes from, I'm sorry, I keep getting distracted by the comments. I'll go back and read them. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll go back and read them at the end. Okay, so difficulty making friends. I think a lot of it comes from, you know, we don't like small talk. We don't like repeating the same thing over and over again, where it's kind of a protection from getting hurt. And then it's also, we're not really interested in a lot of the things that people are interested in, right? So even just like sports and the weather, and, you know, if you hang out with a lot of girls, they want to talk about like clothes and makeup and whatever popular TV show is going on. And for me, I mean, I don't really watch any of them that are popular. I watch 90 Day Fiancé, which I don't know it's that popular. I don't know anybody else who watches it. And it's kind of a weird thing. Like, that's an anomaly. I don't watch any other shows like that. I don't know how I got hooked on that show, but for some reason I am. So it's like, you don't really have a lot of things in common. So I think that's part of the problem. We tend to end up with these hobbies that are different from what most people are into. It's easier now, though, that we have so much social media and there are ways to connect with people other than in-person type things. It's so much easier to find groups that are dedicated to certain personality types or groups that are dedicated to certain hobbies. And it's free to find them, you know, like on Facebook. So you don't have to buy something. You don't have to, you know, pay to show up, and you don't even have to leave your house to show up to these groups. So it's a lot easier nowadays than what it used to be. Another weakness is that we have a tendency to be manipulative. This one, I don't think it's on purpose a lot of the times. I have a story that goes with this one, which I think I shared in the book. So I rented this apartment. I think it was not the apartment I live in now, but a different apartment. I rented one in like July of 2019. And it was like the bottom story of this lady's house. It was kind of like a walkout basement. And so she had access to the apartment inside of her house. And then there was an outside door as well. And when I met her, she was like this, seemed like a nicer, older lady. And I could tell just by talking to her, because she took forever to do everything. She wanted to chit chat so much. I could tell she was looking for like a daughter more than a tenant. But I ignored all of that because it was a nice apartment and it was oceanfront, and I was like, ugh, this is perfect. Like, I would love to live here. And it was furnished too, and I didn't really have a lot of furniture, so I was like, that would be great. So I rented the apartment, and no sooner did I move in than she started coming into my apartment, messing with all of my stuff. She called it cleaning, which she was not authorized to do. She started opening my mail. I quickly learned that the fire extinguisher or the fire alarms weren't operating properly. Every time the electricity would go off, the fire alarms would go off, and they're not supposed to do that. The outside door, she claimed didn't work when it was windy, and she didn't clear the snow off of the outside steps, which in Boston or around Boston, that's a big thing. Like, it has to be cleared in 2 hours, and she didn't do it. So technically she violated my lease like 7 different ways, right? So, and I take full responsibility that I wasn't very upfront with her. I didn't want to make her mad. So I was just like, no, it's okay, you know, it's not a big deal, just let it go. Until, like, I did that for like 6 months, and then I was like, I can't do it anymore. Once she started opening my mail, I'm like, no, she did one other thing. There was a piece of mail, I think I had lost my debit card or something, and so I told her that I was waiting for one to come in the mail, and when it came, she opened the door to my apartment and walked into my apartment at like 10:30 at night. And I was like, this is not okay. So I'm like, okay, I have to move. And of course, I didn't tell her that at the time. I was just kind of looking at her like shocked, you know? So I'm like, okay, I have to move. I found another apartment and told her that I was moving. And when I had signed the lease, she had said, it's totally fine if something doesn't work out, you know, not a big deal. If you need to leave early, like leave your lease early, that's totally fine. And I'm like, okay, cool. So of course, when I actually go to leave the lease and tell her I'm moving 6 months early, she was mad. And she's like, you owe me $8,000, and like, I'm going to call a lawyer. I'm like, okay, cool, call him. I'll call my lawyer. And that's exactly what I told her. And I got really snarky with her. And she got really mad at me. And she's like, I can't, like, she started sending me these long text messages that were like really nasty. And she was like, you're not the person that I thought you were. And I kept, you know, relaying the story to all of my friends going, can you believe that she's saying this stuff to me? And one of my friends, who is like super direct, in a good way and a bad way, but I was telling her this whole story, and I'm like, can you believe that she's saying this stuff to me? And my friend goes, duh, of course she is. Why do you think that she wouldn't? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, you were manipulating her this whole time. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't do that. I've done everything right. And she's like, no, you are not the person that she thought that you were. You were super nice to her and told her that nothing was wrong. And then all of a sudden everything's wrong. And I was like, oh, wow. I guess you're right. I was super manipulative, wasn't I? I didn't mean to be. That wasn't my intention. My intention was to like not make anybody mad, to not rock the boat. But then once I had crossed that line into she's gonna be mad, it was like, I don't care that she's mad. She can be mad. Let her be mad. Doesn't matter. And it, you know, that was like this huge realization for me because I didn't see it that way prior to that. And then once I did, I saw a lot of other situations that I've been in that way too. And it's like, ooh, maybe I have been unintentionally manipulative. So when I say that INFJs are manipulative, I think that we are a lot. And I think that we have the best of intentions usually. And maybe we don't even know what we're doing. But it definitely happens, and it comes off that way too. Okay, another quote unquote weakness. A lot of people tell us that we're extremely sensitive, which we are extremely sensitive. But I don't know that it's as much a weakness. Maybe just like a perceived weakness. It's good that we feel a lot of feelings. There's nothing wrong with it. We have a lot of deep feelings as well. I think one of the ways that it can be a weakness is we haven't been taught how to process all of our emotions. A lot of us aren't told that it's okay to be sensitive. We're told that we need to toughen up. We're told that, what was it that my mom used to tell me all the time? Don't take everything. She's like, you take everything straight to heart and you shouldn't do that. Some people say like, you need to have thicker skin. But I mean, really what they're telling you when they say that is that it's not okay for you to be the way that you are, which is not okay. And unfortunately, a lot of us get told that when we're young, and that's part of the reason that we grow up feeling like there's something wrong with us, when there really isn't anything wrong with us. It's just that we haven't been taught how to process our emotions and how to communicate them. And that can become a problem. Especially when you're taught that your emotions aren't okay, when you're taught that it's not okay to be sensitive, then you hide those parts of yourself from everybody else. And then what ends up happening is you become ashamed of those parts of yourself. You become embarrassed and you start to hide those parts of yourself from yourself too. And so you even deny that they exist. I kind of have this thing where when I get like super, super emotional around other people, I become like incredibly aware of my face, to the point where like I don't want to show any of those emotions on my face. And it used to be something where I was like super proud of being able to not show people my emotions. But now I realize that that's something that like needs a lot of work, because there's nothing wrong with being sensitive. And just because people told you that you were wrong because of it doesn't mean that you actually were. Another one of our weaknesses is that we need a lot of alone time. And I think this can become a weakness for us because a lot of us don't communicate it very well. So I have a friend who I've been friends with for 10 or 12 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. And we tend to go long periods of time without talking to each other. And then we'll reconnect sometimes 6 or 8 months later and then start talking again. And a lot of it is my fault, because I'll go through these periods where I don't want to talk to anybody. You know, if I'm busy with my business, or if I have a lot going on with work, or, you know, there's just a lot going on, then I don't have the emotional capacity to keep up with all of my friends. And so I just quit talking to them. When the mature thing to do would be to send them at least a message and say, hey, I'm overwhelmed right now. I just need a few weeks. Like, can you call me back in a couple of weeks? Can we reconnect? Like, can we make a plan for a couple of weeks or a month or something? That would be a whole lot better than just dropping off the face of the planet. But we tend to be really good at just like going into hiding almost. Another one of our weaknesses is not asking for help. And again, a lot of this comes from asking for help in the past and getting shut down, getting ignored, being told that your problems aren't real problems. And once you get hurt so many times, you're like, I'm just not going to ask for help anymore. People aren't going to help me, so why would I ask for help? And it becomes a weakness, because I was just talking to one of my friends about this the other night. We both said, like, we don't ask for help unless we're like literally think that we're gonna die. and that's true for me, because like I don't go to the doctor unless I literally feel like I'm gonna die. And that was a really big problem for me last year because I was sick for most of the year. And most of the time when I say like, I feel like I'm going to die, it's usually like, I'm just kind of sick and I don't feel good. But last year there were times when it was like, I can't breathe. I feel like I'm suffocating. I'm coughing so much that I can't catch my breath. Like, I'm really going to die. And it was so bad that my mom flew to Boston from South Dakota in the middle of a pandemic because she thought that I was going to die. And even then I was like, I didn't really want to ask for help, but I knew that I needed it. So that's definitely a weakness for us, is not asking for help. There have been a few situations that I've been in that would have been a lot better if I would have asked for help sooner. And that's one of those things that it takes a lot of unlearning, that asking for help, a lot of unlearning. Another one of our weaknesses is that we have this all or nothing mentality. It's, we're either all in or we're all out. There's no gray area. It's like 100%. So if we're doing something, as far as researching something, or we're interested in something, maybe we're reading a book, maybe if you're like me, you're into writing, you're writing a book, or, you know, you have an Instagram account or a YouTube account or something, a podcast. In those cases, it's like when I'm all in, I'm all in. I'll work 100 hours a week if that's what it takes. If I'm really passionate about something. There was a book I was reading, 1984, I think it was. I read it a few months ago, and I read it in like 2 days. I just couldn't put it down. I get like that with some books that are like really, really good. And a lot of projects too are like, I'll forget to eat, I'll forget that I need to sleep, you know, and I'll look up at the clock and it's like, oh, it's 4:00 in the morning. Like, how did that happen? It was like 10 o'clock at night, 5 minutes ago. Like, how is it 4:00 in the morning? So that can definitely be a weakness, obviously. We struggle with a lot of balance in our lives. It takes a lot to get balance. And obviously awareness is the first thing, right? Once you're aware of the problem, then you can work on trying to fix it. Brutal honesty. It's funny that we as INFJs, we're very aware of other people's emotions around us, right? And we have that extroverted feeling, and the intuition, so we can feel what they're feeling, and we're very aware of what's going on and how people are perceiving and taking like what we're saying. But we also have this very rational, reasonable side of us. And especially when it comes to other people, sometimes we can be very brutal with the truth, like straightforward, cut to the bone type of brutal. And a lot of times we don't even realize that's what we're doing. It's just that some people aren't really interested in the truth. A lot of people aren't. They would rather you repeat a lie to them. And I think part of it is because so many of us, we're like counselors to our friends and family, you know, and it's almost like unwanted counselors, you know. A lot of the times we don't want to be the counselor. It's just that people come to us with their problems, and then, you know, sometimes you don't even realize that you're being super honest until you see the shocked looks of the people that you're talking to. And it's like, oh, that was a little bit too much truth, right? You didn't want that. That wasn't what you were looking for. Okay. Yeah. That's painful. I haven't really fixed that one myself, honestly. And it's not like I said, it's not that like we're not aware of the situation. It's just that I think a lot of times people just don't want to hear the truth. I think that's part of it. Another one of our weaknesses is that we're the push through the pain kind of people. So a lot of times pain is there as a warning sign that something's wrong. And for us, especially if it's one of those things that we're super focused on in that all or nothing mode, we don't even notice how bad the pain is. I have that problem with my back. I have issues with my back, and I just sort of am used to the pain. And so I don't really worry about it that much until I try to stand up, and then it's like, ooh, that's a problem. Maybe I should have better posture. Maybe that would fix it. It's just, I think a lot of it has to do with our hyper focus on things, and we just don't pay that much attention to it. It's like, if you can focus on something else, then you don't notice the pain so much, and then it kind of goes away. This is definitely true, pushing through the pain. It's definitely true for things like forgetting to eat. It's kind of like a combination of forgetting to eat and being so focused that you don't want to stop and eat. You know, my dad used to get frustrated with me because we used to go to the racetrack together. So we would go, a lot of times we'd go for practice and qualifying, which was on Friday or Saturday. And then we go to the race on Sunday. And so we would spend a good 8 to 10 hours at the racetrack. And I always wanted to sit there and watch the cars. I didn't want to, go take a break. I wasn't interested in going to get something to eat or going to walk around, or, I wanted to sit there and watch the cars. And my dad was always like, we need to go walk around every couple of hours. And I'm like, no, I'm good. You go. And he would be like, what? I need something to eat. And I'm like, that's cool. You go. I'll be right here. I don't need something to eat. You just go. And then, of course, on the way home, it's like, man, I'm really thirsty. I guess I didn't have anything to drink all day long. And he's like, see, you should have come with me. We tend to get very hyper-focused, though, and just not even notice the pain. Whether it's the pain that you're feeling in your back or your feet, or, hunger pains, we just push through it, and we don't get too focused on it. I think one of my biggest weaknesses, for sure, is high expectations. I have extremely high expectations for myself, and I believe that I can do a lot of quote unquote impossible things because I've done some things that people have told me were impossible, and I get really motivated when people tell me that something that I want to do is impossible. It's like, nope, it's not impossible. I'm going to show you that it's not impossible. But it becomes a weakness because we start to believe that we can do anything, and we push ourselves a lot, and we're never really satisfied. It doesn't matter what we achieve, we're never really satisfied. And the other way that it's a weakness is that we have this idea that if we can do something, then anybody else can do it too. And so we put our high expectations onto other people in our lives. And when they don't meet those expectations, then we get disappointed and we get frustrated with them. And it's very, very easy to get caught up in that trap when we shouldn't be putting those kind of expectations on other people, because it's kind of just like setting yourself up for disappointment a lot of the time. A lot of people don't have the same drive that we have. They don't have the same ability to dream big dreams, and they don't have the same drive and determination to go after them. And they're totally fine with that. I have this friend who has worked in what is essentially a dead-end job for over 10 years now. And they talk a big game about wanting to start their own business and do something different. But at the end of the day, they don't really want to do that because there's never any action. They never take any action. And they just constantly talk about like how they're unhappy and they want to make a change, but then they don't make a change. And I kind of get it a little bit because there have been times where I've talked for like 10 years about making a change, but then eventually I will make the change. A lot of times, and especially, I mean, that was like when I was 18, I started talking about making a change, and it took me, well, I was like 16 when I started talking about making a change, but it took me legitimately 10 years to make it. And then after that, once I did, I was like, I'm not going to wait 10 years anymore because that's just wasted time. So, I mean, I tend to not plan for that long. I don't wait for the majority of the things that I want to do. I'm like, no, let's just figure it out. Let's take some action now. Let's not wait forever. So it's difficult for me when I see people like that and I see a lot of potential there and I know that they have a desire. They just don't have the determination and they're not interested in taking action now. And if you keep putting things off until tomorrow, there's always another tomorrow, and it'll always be tomorrow, and it's always tomorrow, and 10 years later, you're in the same spot that you were in 10 years ago, and nothing has changed. So it's difficult, right? There's a part of me that wants to be like, I can help you. I can show you, like, we could break this down into small steps, and this could be really cool, and I have all of this knowledge about business that I could share with you, and this could be really cool. And then the other part of me is like, trying to understand that they don't really want to change. And it kind of reminds me of, there's this video that Mel Robbins did. I don't know if I can tell you the whole thing exactly. I probably don't remember enough of it. But she was talking about how she wanted a six-pack. And she's like, I do want to be thin and to have like muscle definition, but I don't want to do the work to get there. She's like, I'm lazy and I like to eat carbs and I like to drink wine. And when I do that, I'm not going to get the muscle definition that I want. And I know that. So what needs to happen is I need to stop complaining about not being thinner because I don't really want it. Because if I did want it, I would put in the work to actually get it. And so you can stay in this endless cycle of complaining about what you don't have, or you can stop complaining. Accept the fact that you're never going to get there and let it go. Move on to something else. And that was like one of those things. It was super motivating for me because I'm like, ooh, there's like 2 or 3 things that I complain about constantly that I don't take any action on. And I think the reason that I get so frustrated with other people, like my friend who says he wants to make a change and won't make a change, I think it's because I see that in myself as well. And I'm like, yeah, there are some places that I'm failing. There are some places that I'm making a lot of progress, but then there are some places that I'm failing, and that bothers me. And I don't like to see you fail. Yeah. So then that brings us to our next weakness, which is being perfectionistic. We have this wonderful and amazing imagination, and we are great at going through all the details of a situation or a potential future situation and being idealistic. Even though we like to think of ourselves as realistic, a lot of times we are idealistic, and we see how things could be perfect, and we think that if we plan enough and if we work at something enough, then it could be perfect. And it's a really, really difficult trap to get sucked into, because what happens is you get stuck in planning mode. And you just keep thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking, and you think that you can think your way out of the thinking. And it doesn't work. The only thing that will get you past that cycle is to take action. Whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that you're planning, if you really want to do it, you should take some action on it and make it happen. And if you don't really want to do it, then you should stop thinking about it. And the last one is expecting too much of others, which we kind of already talked about. So I know that this chapter is like really, really rough because it's like, hey, here's all the worst things about you. Let's talk about them. And I don't really usually like to talk about all the worst things together. I certainly don't want you to be discouraged or distressed about them. Like I said, a lot of them, it's good to be aware of, and awareness is the first step, you know, admitting that you have a problem is the first step. And I really think that the next step is a willingness to change. It is an openness to change. You don't have to say, I'm going to stop being a perfectionist. You just have to say, I'm willing to stop being a perfectionist. And another thing that works really well is to say, what if? What if I stop being a perfectionist? What if I stop worrying about every little detail? That helps a lot too. So, all right, that is, what did we say? Chapter 8? I get confused. I think that's chapter 8. INFJ weaknesses. Next week, we're going to talk about communication, which is a lot better topic. Yes. Also, make sure that you sign up for my free workshops that I'm doing here coming up in a couple weeks. It's called Here for This. So you can go to infjwoman.com/hereforthis. This is a great workshop that will help you. There's actually 5 of them. They'll be at noon Eastern time. Every single day, Monday through Friday. We're going to talk about, I actually have the topics here. So day 1, we're going to talk about breaking the habit of being you. Day 2, we were going to talk about who were you before the world told you who to be. Day 3, we're going to talk about energy, how to shift your energy to a higher vibration. Day 4, we're going to talk about how to step out of scarcity and into abundance. And day 5, we're going to talk about living a happy life through daily acts of joy. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure that you go sign up. Again, you can go to infjwoman.com/hereforthis. All right. I will see you guys next week. Same place, same time. Have a good weekend. So you just watched that video, and I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you want some more amazing information about INFJs, check out these videos right now. I'll see you there.